Hi everyone,
and welcome to another episode of ITT Podcast, which stands for In This Together Podcast. Our podcast is our honest take on relationships, love, and marriage, with the aim of sharing our views and experiences for you to take from it whatever you need.
So whether you're single, dating, in a relationship, or happily married, there is something in it for you.
Hi everyone! Today's episode is called Do Traditional Men and Traditional Women Even Still Exist? In this episode, we will explore the new age debate of traditional men versus traditional women. It's not even traditional men versus it's traditional men versus modern women versus traditional men. That's the same thing.
No, it's traditional men, modern men, and traditional women versus modern women, right?
I don't think that's what's happening. I think the argument is traditional men versus modern women. The debate is more traditional men versus modern women.
Why is it versus though? Are they going against each other or like what is it?
This is the thing. It depends on what world you live in. In the social media world, traditional men are definitely versus modern women.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, when you then look at traditional women, there is an element, like you're saying, of traditional women being kind of versus modern women. There is an element of that, but I feel like in the social media sphere, the debate is a lot more about traditional men versus modern women.
Yeah, okay.
And I even had an experience of this that I showed you last night, remember, on Instagram when I commented.
Oh, yes.
Well, I made a comment and we'll get into that. But essentially, the question we're going to try and tackle is, do traditional men and traditional women even really still exist? Like truly traditional men and truly traditional women.
But first of all, we need to define what we mean by traditional and modern.
Yeah, go for it then.
I didn't say that. I said we have to define it.
Well, what do we mean? I mean, why are we talking about it? We always talk about why we're talking about it.
Yeah. Why is it important to us? Why are we talking about it then?
Well, we're talking about it because last week we were talking about double standards between men and women. And we were talking about, we wanted to touch on the double standards between men and women in that kind of traditional men versus modern women and, finances, the double standards in finances, all that. There's a lot of talk in that space, but we felt like it was just going to overtake the whole conversation about double standards when it's not just about traditional men and modern women. And so we were like, well, let's just touch on it this week.
Okay.
But as we've been kind of thinking about this episode, we've already kind of recognized that we've spoken about this in so many different episodes, not directly.
But we've touched on it.
We touched on it. Yeah. The first season we did why roles matter in relationships. So we were speaking so much about the roles that you play in a relationship. And some of that is traditional, but some of that is also like to do with who is the most...
Yeah, who's better at... Is it who's the most or who's better at specific...
Yeah, who's better at specific things. We were talking about a household running in a way where the roles are really clear. Yes. And then we also spoke about are modern women too masculine? And we were talking about, the debate these days about women having too much masculine. We were talking about why that might even be, if so and stuff. So we have touched on traditional roles and the traditional men and traditional women many times, but not specifically. We've never addressed this whole topic head on.
Yeah.
And I think this is what we're going to do today. But I think for me as a woman, this conversation is important to me. And I think it matters to us in terms of this podcast, because I think it can be a stumbling block for a lot of relationships down the line.
Yeah.
I think it's something that people don't think about in the beginning sometimes. Then in the relationship.
And they don't plan for.
And then I think in the relationship, whether or not you're a traditional man or a modern woman really starts to come into play. Yeah. And then there can be a lot of friction in the relationship as a result. Or in the modern era now, I think also it's playing a role in the beginning because some people are using it to kind of label people and be like, I want a traditional man, I want a traditional woman, and that's it, without even thinking about what they're actually asking for and what kind of woman that rules out and all of that. So I feel like not so much before, but I feel like now there's also an element of people just throwing that term around. And because of that, it might be ruling a lot of young men and a lot of young women out of potential suitors. So there's an element of that we need to kind of explore. What about you? Why does this topic matter to you?
I think this topic matters to me because I think people need to understand what it is to be traditional and what we're talking about when we say modern. I mean, the modern bit might be easier to understand because obviously you think modern, you think, society nowadays and whatnot, but in the traditional sense, what it takes to be a traditional man or a traditional woman. Outlining that was definitely key for this episode, and I'm keen for us to do this, to get to outline what it means so that people understand it.
And you're all about that. You're always about, do people even understand? Like even with submission, that was your whole thing. I think that's always interesting because it's always interesting for me to hear what you think is being misunderstood and what it actually means.
Yeah, because when you understand what it means, it changes how you think about it.
Yeah.
Because when we went through the whole submission episode and we discussed what submission actually means in the purest form, it changed your perception of it.
Yeah, 100%.
So I think the same thing applies to this. And I think once you understand what it means to be traditional, then it's a case of looking at yourself and thinking, okay, am I really a traditional person?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was kind of like an intro and we spoke about why it's important. And now it's like, okay, let's kick it off. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do definitions. I mean, in the basic sense of the two words, when it comes to gender roles, they tend to describe cultural expectations and standards associated with men and women in different settings. I find it interesting they talk about gender roles.
Yeah, because it always links to gender roles.
It's true. Because whether or not you're traditional, it's about whether or not you're playing that gender role.
Oh, yes.
So then what does modern mean?
Modern is more fluid. When you think modern, you think equality, you think sharing.
That's interesting because the actual definition is relating to the present or recent times. And so even when you think of tradition, it's relating to the past. It's about like
it's how things were done before.
Whereas modern is about present or recent times. And present or recent times changes.
Yeah.
What was modern today in 2023 is not what was modern in 2001 necessarily.
That is true.
Whereas tradition seems to remain quite stagnant.
Yeah.
But modern is ever changing, so fluid is right.
Yeah, it's the traditional sense. It's almost like a standard.
Yeah,
it's unchanged. It doesn't matter. Time doesn't change it. So it could be 100 years from now. When you're referring to traditional, it's just
Yeah. So if that's the definition of tradition and modern, when we ask the question, do traditional men and women even still really exist? We're asking the question, do the men and women that exist today, of the men and women that exist today, are there any that really can say they are traditional? And if they can, what will make them as such?
Yeah, I personally don't believe anyone that exists today is traditional. I think
they might have traditional
elements, but I think it's a mixture of both. You might get someone that's very traditional in terms of how she wants the house to be ran. But there are other elements of it that she wants equality. She wants certain things that are like very modern.
So me, basically.
Yeah, you're a hybrid. Yeah.
No, I'm joking. But yeah. And I think that is the problem. There is the picking and choosing of modern and tradition in relationship. Yeah. And then obviously coupled with the fact that you're ever changing, you're always growing, you're always evolving as a human being.
Yes.
Those elements of modern and tradition are changing. And it's almost as though you've got to make sure that they're lining up with the person that you're with, because that's the problem with such a hybrid. And I think we touched on it.
We have. And I think that's why there is a lot of confusion on social media about this whole traditional and modern, because there isn't a straightforward answer. I'll be very surprised if you can find someone that's just outright traditional. Yeah, I'll be very surprised. I want to be a traditional man.
You want to be?
Yeah, I want to be. And it's something that I had been planning to do while I was younger.
Oh, when you were young.
Okay, yeah.
I was like, it's like, I had to plan this to be a traditional bath for you.
When I was much younger.
That ship I sailed.
But my plan had been that when I got to a certain age, I would want my wife to have that traditional role. Because I understood the whole traditional process. I understand it very well. And there's a certain element of it that I appreciate and I actually like.
Which is what?
Which is the man goes out to work, the man provides. There's a certain comforting element to that for me, being able to do that. Because I think mentally, just talking about our relationship, mentally in a working space, I work much better than you do.
Okay.
No. Let's be honest, because it all comes down. Yeah,
but that might just be me. There might be women that can.
But this is why you have to take what you need from this, because every relationship is going to be different. But I'm just talking about from our relationship. From our relationship, I think when we look at it in terms of you're a hardworking woman. You've been working for years, working the same time as I've been working, and working together. So it's a case of where you break it down and say, oh, who should actually be working? The answer is me. I should be working and you should be at home doing all your creative stuff, because that fits in with who you are.
Who I am. But like we said last week, that's not always the case for every woman.
No. There are some women out there that just wouldn't want to stay at home. They want to work.
Yeah.
Their drive is to work. Their drive is to get things done, and not get things done, but
that's where they want to be. So let's go back to the point about there was an appeal to you of being a traditional husband before you even met me, before you even, got married and became a dad and a husband. So what happened then? Or I'm not saying you're not. I'm saying, you know how you said you always wanted to be that from when you were young?
Yeah.
Do you not think you're that now?
I don't think I'm in that space yet, because of obviously the lifestyle that we live. And truth be told, I did not plan it well enough, because I think when I was younger, finance decision that I made, I was not thinking, even though it's what I wanted, but I was not thinking ahead about it in terms of what's going to happen in 15 years time or 20 years time.
Yeah.
When we're married, we've got our first child. This is where I want to draw the line. This is where I want the traditional thing to stop from.
Yeah, and then kind of communicate that with me before it even happened. Get on the same page. And this is why this episode is going to be so interesting, because I think we have not scripted this the way we normally do. And I think we're really just trying to talk openly about this, because I think there is an element in this.
This is exclusive. It is live and exclusive. We've never discussed this before this to this extent. So that's why I'm saying it's exclusive.
And I think we're exploring it as we go along, because there is an element of how this question actually plays out in a relationship in 2023.
Yeah.
So there is that element of, I want to be a husband where my wife can stay at home, I provide in every way, right? But that's such an idealistic thought process that it's not going to manifest in your life unless there's actual clarity and actions taken to make that the case. And a lot of the reasons why that won't manifest as well is because of the woman that you choose, right? Because when you met me, I never thought about myself as being a traditional wife, even though there were so many elements of me that's traditional. The cooking, the way the household's run, the decorating the house. So I've got so many feminine traits.
Yeah.
But I always considered myself as more of a modern woman, even though I had so many parts of me that were traditional. And I never even felt like you ever had it in your mind for me to be a traditional woman.
I know.
Or a traditional wife. And I think a lot of women don't realize that some men might feel that way. But when they're in the relationship in the beginning, this is not really being discussed.
No.
Because you're young, you're growing together and you're building together, especially if you meet when you're younger. You're growing together, you're building together. At what point does the switch? Does it switch?
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't.
It doesn't, which is a problem.
And it becomes
a problem because I believe the woman, as you get older, sometimes some women, they may want to then step into that space. But because you haven't been having that discussion,
and you're not set up.
For that. It doesn't happen.
You might not even be mentally set up for that, because that traditional space, depending on how much money you can bring into the family.
This is what I was talking about.
You might not be used to relying on someone.
Yeah, that's another thing. This is why I was talking about planning it well enough.
Yeah, let's go back to that. Like,
when we got together and we got married and the first child, I think there was supposed to be a gap.
Was there supposed to be?
It was usually supposed to be a 2-3 year gap that would allow me to just financially build up, like stability.
But you weren't.
I know.
You were trying to do no 2-3 year gap, and maybe this is what we're trying to tell people.
Yeah.
Maybe this is it. Yeah. If that's what you want, then maybe there should have been a gap.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's something that I wanted to put in place and then carry on building on it. So that when that first child came, what I wanted was that when you get to that maternity phase, I could slowly phase out the process of you working.
I know you never discussed.
I know I never did that. But you know what? You know why I did not discuss it? You know why I did not discuss it? Because I did not want the smoke.
What?
No, because my understanding when I was younger was asking women to be traditional women was almost like a disrespectful thing.
Really?
Like, all I'm saying to you is for you to be in the house, just to be at home. Like, people's understanding back then was different. It was
so you didn't want the smoke, but you were still planning for this.
I was still planning this because I knew when you get to a certain age, you're going to want that. I knew it. I knew it. And I should have been brave enough to bring it to you and just discussed it. But there was an element of not coming across as sexist. Yeah? By saying, babe, I think I want you to be a tradition. I didn't know how you would take it.
Wow.
I know.
Guys, I'm hearing this for the first time. So we have not had this discussion. So this is actually surprising.
I did not know how you would take it. So back then I did not say anything. I just thought,
wow.
It will happen eventually.
Wow.
The first child came pretty quickly. And then that just...
Yeah, because, let's give everybody a bit of background. We got married. We weren't young. Like, I was 27, 26. I turned 27 soon after I had Guav. I was 27. So
yeah,
it wasn't like we were young. You were already 30. But once we got married, within 4 months, I was pregnant with Guav. So we were like catapulted into parenthood, where it's like, all right, we need to buy the house. We always planned to buy the house. We had money saved up, right? A lot of the money we saved up before we got married was to buy the house. So the house was always going to come. But I think what we didn't prepare for was how much life spirals after the children if the children weren't planned for properly, in the sense that we knew we wanted to have Guav. After we got married, sorting out the house, we were like, let's have a kid. We were not thinking about it in terms of we got all these finances in place. We were just thinking, we're going to have a house, we're going to have a roof over our head. We didn't save beyond that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that was a part of it that was interesting for us, because once we bought the house, we had the child, it was almost like everything was happening to us as it went along. And then Guav was 2, and then it was like, let's have another child, because we started talking about the gap. Do we want a big gap? Do we want a small gap? We decided on a small gap. And then, I was pregnant with Ellie. And then it was like, all of a sudden we got 2 kids, and it's like, we need to move house. Like, the things happen. Yeah. So it just happens to you. And I think what you're saying about the plan and putting things in place is valid for younger men today, because for you, that's what you wanted. You wanted that traditional setup. And I think when I had Guav, I was not in that space. I wanted to go back to work, and I don't think I would have accepted it then. But after Ellie with the second child,
you wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't.
And then when we moved to the second house as well, there was an element of that coming up again. There was that opportunity again for me to do that. But I didn't want that either. I mean, even when we started this podcast last year, I was saying, I don't want that. I don't want that.
I know.
Now, I don't know. Yeah. I feel like maybe in a few years.
Yeah, maybe. But I always think as a man, it should be a car that we have in our back pocket. Yeah. We have to have that, because you could easily just say, look, babe.
It needs to.
We should just be financially ready to switch that on, and then that's it.
Okay, but that's okay. So that's talking about you, and you're very you've always been traditional in that sense, but then you're also very modern in lots of other ways. I mean, anyone who's been listening to this podcast, so many men will be like, nah, because some of the things, the way you talk is so modern. It's so like untraditional, like the way you think about women and their rights and, you know, roles in relationships. And there's so many things that certain men will argue for that you would argue more along the same lines of what women would, because you feel like what men are saying is unfair or unjust. So how does that play out then, considering that you have this traditional baseline? But then you're so modern in the way you think. And so what is the difference? What are we really saying?
I think the difference is, I think growing up with a single parent, you know, my mother, it has taught me a lot to look after women, to prioritize women. So even though I have that traditional base, so I guess, put it this way, if we had that traditional relationship, right, whereas you're at home and I work, I would still come home and I would still play with the kids, bathe the kids. I will still do what I do. I will find it hard to step back from that because I enjoy doing those things, because I feel like, as I've always said in our previous podcast, I have a relationship with you and I have a relationship with kids individually. So that's my time with them. Growing up with, you know, in a single parent household has taught me that, look, it doesn't matter what I need to do as a man, I still need to be there
for your wife.
For your wife. And so that's I guess that's where that's come from.
So, and maybe that's why you're saying, but do these men really understand what it means to be a traditional man? Because maybe to you, from what I know of you, it's more about your responsibilities and the ownership you take in being responsible for your family.
Yes.
And I think that's regardless of what setup your family has. Because like we said before, we've been through different setups. We've been through setups where I would say we were much more traditional and you were like financially doing everything.
Even that, I prefer the setup where I was taking care of everything.
Yeah, you said before.
That's why, you know, I gravitate towards that. That's why I will plan to have that setting.
And I think you will get that back eventually, because I'm starting to see the value in that. You know, like I said last week, Guav is studying to go to secondary school, and I'm starting to see the value in being at home more with the kids, and not just being at home, but having the energy to be more involved in their schooling and their development. And sometimes it's hard working full time and having all that going on, and then looking after the house, and then also feeling like I'm not able to be that kind of mother that I want to be. And if I feel like that with the kind of husband you are, where I don't do everything by myself at all, I hardly do anything by myself. If I feel like that, how do other women feel in those, what I like to call modern traditional relationships, where they're working and then there's still the full-time housewife, and it's like, how you doing both?
Must be challenging. Must be really challenging.
Yeah. And I think that's what we need to kind of get into a bit more, like, okay, what does traditional mean? If we're saying the question of traditional men versus modern women is so complex that it's being kind of watered down, what are we saying about it? What does it mean to be a traditional man and a modern woman?
I think to be a traditional man, it's a clear line to what you're responsible for and what the woman's responsible for. The line is not blurred, because I think when you start talking about hybrid and they talk about what most relationships are these days, it cuts across both lines. It's a case of there's a bit of traditional, there's a bit of
modern. Yes.
It's never just fully traditional. If we look back to what it was back in those days, in the 30s, the 40s, or the 50s, why? The man worked I can't say most because I don't have the stats, but I would say a lot of men that did the traditional thing, they would not get the kids washed, get the kids ready. They don't know how to change a nappy, how to feed the kids.
And we've spoken about this given stats in previous episodes.
Their role is to get up in the morning, work, provide, protect, ensure the kids, the wife, everyone's fed, everyone's happy, everyone's healthy, everyone has what they need. That was just their number one priority. That was it. Anything else was taken care of by the woman. That is traditional. Like, when I say everything is taken care of by the woman, like everything is taken care of by the woman, and the man just provides. The woman doesn't have to work for anything. It's as clear as that. There isn't any. It's as clear as that.
And then modern is anything that's not that. Like, so technically, even your desire to be traditional was never truly a desire to be traditional, because if you really think of it, you didn't want that clear cutness, isn't it?
Yeah, in the sense that it's hard to get into that traditional space until you've established where you want to be. But if you're working towards something, like if you're working to buy a bigger house, if you're working to have financial freedom, you have to do a lot more work, and it will take the both of you to make that work.
Yeah,
but I think
or it would take long.
Exactly.
It would take a lot more money than an average life.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What if there's no kids? What makes you a traditional man?
You're still working and still providing
100%. So what if you're providing 70% and she's doing 30% towards the household? You don't have kids. Are you still a traditional man?
She's doing 30%. Like
she works and she brings in 30%.
That's not traditional. Even if the kids are old enough and they move out of the house and it's just both of you, she should be at home while you work. Then she can do the homely stuff. You still have the normal married relationship thing where you go on date nights and you go on holidays and whatnot, but that's what being traditional is. Everything is taken care of.
And I think that's why we're saying, when people are on social media today talking about, I want a traditional woman, there is something there where it's like, what are you talking about? What are you actually talking about? Because a traditional woman, I don't think you want a traditional woman. Like, a traditional woman is going to rely on you 100% to provide.
For everything. Yeah.
She's going to rely on you to provide. And I think, is that what you mean? It's obviously, don't stay on social media too long, because you'll see a lot of nonsense. And a lot of people, they say things for clickbait and they say things to go viral. So we understand that.
Yeah.
But the sad thing is, this messaging is what some of the youth today, and I'm talking young adults into early 20s that are supposed to be meeting each other. This is the messaging they're internalizing. So some people say, oh, don't listen to social media, live in the real world. But our generation is not the generation that this is applying to. We're talking to the younger generation when we talk about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because we know how to differentiate between reality and social media chatter.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of young
their world is
people. It is their world. These opinions are what's being debated, and that's why we even do this.
It is
because when there's all these little clips on TikTok and stuff pushing, where are all the traditional women? Why are women not traditional? It's crazy, because it's like, well, at the same time, you have clips on social media talking about these women that just only after your money. It's like, I don't want no gold digger. I don't want no woman that's after my money.
But the thing is, a lot of those men cannot afford a traditional woman. There's asking for a traditional woman and there's being able to look after a traditional woman. Can you afford it? A lot of men cannot.
And this is what we were talking about. We were talking about the fact that there is this notion of a traditional woman in terms of gender performative norms.
Yes.
Is she submissive? Does she let you lead? Does she do the cooking? But then the other aspect of what makes a traditional woman is just not being talked about. And it's shunned almost as gold digging, as trying to live off men, trying to finesse men. It's like, you cannot have that message in the same chat. You can't have that same message. Either you want traditional women that rely on men to look after them and meet their every needs, and in exchange, because a fair exchange is no robbery, in exchange you're going to get a woman that lets you make decisions, lets you lead, that will look after you, cook for you, clean for you, take care of you, and she's happy to do that. Or you want a woman that can take care of herself, and because of that, she has an element of, we're going to need to work together a bit more. And we spoke about this in our Modern Women to Masculine bit, but, we're talking specifically about traditional women and men, and I think that's the crux of it. A lot of these men on social media these days are talking from a perspective that is not even their reality. In the sense that some of the things that Kevin Samuels was talking about in terms of high-value men, and men are like, yes, they're not the high-value man he's talking about. Like, there's no point applauding that when he's literally talking about a small percentage of men. And high-value men is a totally different conversation. But those men that he's talking about can, like you said, afford a traditional woman. They can put a woman in a home, look after that home, look after the kids, provide for her, all of that. If you're asking for a traditional woman and you can't do that,
then it's not a traditional woman you want, or you can't afford one. It's as simple as that. I understand it, because I think as a man, right, It's a natural thing to want a traditional woman.
Yeah.
Please don't feel like it's something that's abnormal. It isn't. It's a natural thing to want that. But you have to have the right things in place to have that. You can't just be like, because you don't get your way, you start saying, oh, these women are masculine. These women, they know you cannot look after them in a traditional manner. That's why they are doing their own thing. That's why you feel like they're masculine, because they want to work, because they can't afford to be at home while you provide and stuff. You're not capable. That's why they have to go out and do all of that as well.
And there's elements of like, when it comes to women wanting men that can look after them, and this is where I talk about hypergamy and stuff, there is an element of realism that you do need to put into that, which is that man is going to expect a certain type of woman. So if you want a man to look after you, then you have to accept that he might not want you to work. Because he might not want to be looking after you financially and everything else you need. And then those things that he needs from you are not getting done because you're busy prioritizing your own stuff. It's like, what am I getting out of this? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not to say you cannot find a man who can look after you and you still work. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying you can't work. That's not what I'm saying. Because some men, that's fine. They still want to be.
If you choose to work, then fine. But as far as in his head, this is a traditional relationship, traditional marriage, because he's providing, he's taking care of everything. You're working, that's your money, that's your plate money, whatever. But he still expects the same things. The house in shape, the house, the kids looked after, the kids.
He's not gonna. He's unlikely to accept slippage in areas that he thinks you are responsible for as a traditional woman, given that he's doing what he should be doing as a traditional man. And I think that's where some of the criticism from women is coming from, because they're kind of saying, you want a man that's going to give you all of this, but then you're not even trying to be a traditional woman. You're not trying to be respectful and, let him lead. You're trying to give him attitude. But I don't even think, I feel like, okay, let me start again.
That's not sufficient.
No, it's not even that. I don't think that we are coming at it from the right angle, right? It's almost like women are bashing men about traditional menness, and then men are like, yeah, but you guys got too much attitude and modern women are not good enough for us. Just take the men and be like, this is what you need to do to get to where you need to get to. And this is the kind of man you should be. And then take the women aside and be like, this is what you need to do to be the kind of woman for the man you kind of want. We're almost trying to like bring them all together and discuss the flaws. It's like, why are we discussing the flaws? Because a traditional woman will want a traditional man, but that traditional man should want the things that come with a traditional woman. Whereas it seems as though the traditional man is wanting certain aspects of a traditional woman and certain aspects of a modern, and the same thing with modern women. They want certain aspects of a traditional man, but then they want that same man to allow certain things that would actually be a bit more modern.
This is what I said at the beginning, because they don't fully understand what it means to be traditional.
Yeah.
They just don't know.
Okay, so you as a grown man that's been in a relationship a long time, what would you say to young men about being traditional and what it really means? What do you want them to take away from this conversation?
I think they need to understand that if you're looking for a traditional woman, you need to be willing to look after her, looking after, the bills, the kids, everything paid for, everything is on you. Like, you literally have to carry the burden of the household, like being taken care of. And if you're a young man hoping to get married in the future, it's never too early to start thinking about that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're really serious about being a traditional man, it's never too serious to start thinking about that. If you're with someone that you love, that you think, we're going to get married one day, have that conversation. Babe, what do you think in 10 years' time, you becoming a traditional woman? Have that debate, have that discussion, because she could tell you that, look, nah, that's not for me. That's not for me. I would say ignore her and carry on saving, because she will change her mind. Because after having kids, things do change. Things do change. So I would just ignore her and carry on saving. Have like a private pot.
Come on.
No. Have like even if you want to call it,
just in case she wants to become the
traditional pot. Just have it and start putting money in there, because you need to have the right settings for that to happen. We're not talking about having the house. This is why I said I didn't plan it properly, because moving into a bigger house and everything, that should have been on me. It should have been a case of we have the finances way beyond just buying another house and having everything in that house. It should have gone beyond that, and then some more.
I don't know. I think that's being harsh on yourself, because I think we spoke about our roles. We always kind of understood who does what in our relationship, but we've never spoken about being a traditional wife, traditional man. And I feel like you're putting too much on yourself, because I don't think this is where we were.
I know, but
that's not what our relationship was like.
This is why I believe that I failed.
No.
So no. Let me finish. Because I should have been a bit clearer. I should have said, look, I'm thinking, in a couple of years' time, this is how I want the settings to be. But you did not get that. Because for me, I knew we would get to a point whereby you're going to turn around to me and say, I don't want to work anymore. Which is understandable. Right? You've had to...
Talk about putting people...
No. Trust me.
Okay, well, now we're going to have to explain to everybody where that's coming from.
Where was coming from?
Because last year I was saying I'm not at that place. I do want to work, and there's things I want to achieve and I want to work. And then this year I'm like, maybe I don't want to work, right? And I have to explain that, because it's not a case of I don't want to work because I just want to be taken care of. There's a lot of things that we want to do where I'm like, I think we need to set it up where I don't have to actually work in the way that I work, and I can do some of these things. And
your creative side.
And I think a lot of it is also because of the trading. Like, once the trading came into our lives, like investing, trading, things like that, it's like a whole different world. There's a lot of different ways to make money, and
true.
We've done really well in trading.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I feel like there's an element there of, thinking about things differently from just working in, well, I'm not going to say where we work, but working in the field that we work in and making the money the way we work, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And so I'm like, I can do a lot of different things, and and we also invest. So there's backup there. Investing is a backup, trading is a backup. So a lot has changed in a year, but then it's not. But this is not. But this do or die either. It's not immediate.
But this is why it's so like tricky, this whole traditional, this modern, because you still want to trade, you still want to do something to make money, you still want to like be creative. So you are still kind of working to generate money.
Yeah.
So it's
exactly. So that's what I'm saying. It's not that I don't want to work. I don't want to work in the field that I'm working.
Yeah, and you don't want to you want to do something that you love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's other things that we do that we can make money, where I can make money and make that happen. Yeah. And I think that's where it's just so like, it's like you're saying, there's no sitting at home for me. It's not like I just want to stay there. And there's nothing wrong with sitting at home.
You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. But there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's actually nothing wrong with that. Because you're not sitting at home. You're doing a lot of stuff when you're a stay-at-home mum, or you're just a stay-at-home wife.
Yeah.
You do a lot.
You do a lot.
But for me, it's more about the creative side of things.
Yeah.
But so I feel like there's something there around that. And I think now, it's not even that we don't have the finances to have that set up right now. It's not that we don't have the finances, in my opinion. I think it's what you said about our lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because our lifestyle is one of two working, established senior people.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree. Both working.
I agree. That's why it needs to be planned. It needs to be planned in advance before that time. Mm-hmm. That's why when you ask me, what advice would I give to young men out there? It's like, if you are a traditional man and you're looking for a traditional woman, be in a position to be able to afford a traditional woman.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, stop talking about it.
Otherwise, keep that name out your mouth.
Don't talk about it. It's not what you want. You get me? Yeah. Get some jollof rice, because it's not a traditional woman that you want. If she wants to know, because there's talk about, sometimes when guys talk about traditional women, all they think about is food. All they are thinking about is food. That's just, I like traditional women. Some of them will not be at home making your jollof rice, making your more. No. It goes beyond that. You're going to pay more. No, hear what? They will get a traditional woman, and then they will provide just a little bit. What about the rest? The woman is looking at her like, I'm not going to work now. It's like, what do you mean? You wanted a traditional woman, right? Yeah, this is it. So say people don't understand what it means. It means taking care of.
Then what about the rest? He's providing enough so he can get his jollof.
I need 200 pounds to do my hair. It's like, where am I getting that money from? There, you wanted a traditional woman now. This is what you get. So it's the whole thing. You can't have a little bit of it and then the rest expects to be modern. It doesn't work like that.
Unless it does work like that, unless you are being realistic about it and you're saying, these are the things that I'm traditional in, and that's what we're advising.
Yeah.
And these are the things that I'm modern in.
Yeah.
And try and find the fit. You need to find someone who shares your same values. This is why we're always talking about that, because I feel like you've always shared the same values as me, because even as you're saying, oh, you feel like you failed because there's certain conversations we should have had because you should have known I would get to this point. And I feel like, no, I don't feel like that's the case, because we met younger, for starters, early 20s. So we've been together a long time. And I feel like when you're together from young,
you build.
There's just you're just not in a hypergamous relationship. It's hard for you to be in that in your 20s.
You'll have to be a wealthy person.
Yeah. Like you have to have married like a billionaire's son.
Yeah.
Or you married
a
son. Maybe not even that, but also someone who had like a trust fund for them, or they had
someone that's got money, someone that's
ready set up
money. Yeah.
And our culture, in our community, that's not always the case. It's not always the case, because a lot of the times, like we've said in the past, we're like first generation of, people that came over from Africa and Caribbeans, blah, blah, blah. So being born here and stuff like that, it's only now really starting to happen with like the Congolese kids that I know, the Nigerian kids that you know and stuff like that. So we're not set up like that from jump. So when you meet young, it's like if you're both young, most of the time you don't have that set up.
No,
we're the ones that have to make it to hand over to our kids, like finances in their early 20s and stuff. And so you're building together, you're growing together. You're just not really going to have that setup.
Yeah, I agree.
And so it's like, I don't feel like you could have done anything any differently. Yeah. We understood what it was when we got together, which was that we're growing together. And like I said, you might meet at uni. What do you have at uni? You haven't established anything yet.
You build, you're building together, then you get married, and then you carry on building together, and then that's where you kind of start building this foundation for that to happen. It takes years. It's not something that, you could just wake up one day and be like, I need a traditional
transitional wife.
Like, it doesn't work like that.
But then I guess our advice would be, discuss what you're building towards. Discuss it early on. Because you're going to meet young.
Make it a plan. Because we talk about retirement, but this is something that you should plan ahead for.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And the thing is, if you're a young girl, like let's say you're like 23 or whatever, and you want to be a traditional wife and the rest of it, either you're probably going to meet someone who can look after you a bit, but you might have to build with him a bit, but make your intentions clear, like we're saying.
Yeah.
Or you need to probably be looking for someone that's a bit more established. Don't be telling the boys your age.
Yeah.
Don't be telling the 21-year-old guy who's just come out of uni to be flying you everywhere because he's trying to establish himself.
Yeah, not going to work.
And I think that, I don't know, maybe I'll get in trouble from girls for saying this because maybe they want to believe that, why can't he buy me this? Why can't he take me here? But it's like, no, if you want to be a traditional wife, you want to be taken care of, and you want it now, you need to go a different age bracket.
Yeah.
He needs to be like 30s.
Yeah, I agree.
30s or, because at that point he's been to uni, he's got his savings, he's established himself. I think that's just the truth of it.
Yeah, I agree. It's not realistic.
No. And
that puts a lot of pressure on the young boys.
Pressure on the men is not bad as well.
No pressure, no. If you're coming at it from, we're in a relationship, and we're talking about it, we're discussing it, that kind of pressure is good. But if it's a kind of pressure where it's negative, like, you boys, you guys can't like that kind of talk is not healthy at all. So I think be honest, be open, and then just say what you mean. And if it's not what they want, if it's not what the guy wants,
then
take that action.
Don't try and force people to be a certain way either. And stop chatting to people on the internet about chastising people for what they want and telling women that they're all unrealistic, or telling men that they're all narcissists and stuff like that. I feel like we need to be more compassionate with each other. Like, there's nothing wrong with women expecting a certain standard from men. That doesn't make them gold diggers.
Absolutely isn't.
Half the time, that's what you say you want anyway, traditional women. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Actually, I was going to tell us the story about the comment I made on Instagram where there was like a post on this page that I follow, and the guy was saying like, oh, he really hates when you get to that point in a relationship where you can't stand your girlfriend and you're doing everything you can wrong so that she can break up with you and she keeps forgiving you. And then I commented like, wow, that's really sad to read, because essentially, if you get to the point where you are starting to mess up on purpose to be broken up with, you're just being cowardly. Although this is not what I said. I didn't say all this, but essentially you're being cowardly. You should just tell the person you don't want to be with them and break up with them instead of hurting someone that you supposedly cared about at some point. It's weird. So my comment was, wow, this is sad to read or something like that. And I was saying, this is why you have to keep your standards high. And you can't ignore red flags or bad, like inconsistent behavior. You can't just ignore it, because this is the kind of thing that could be going on. Maybe they're trying to break up with you and you're consistently ignoring red flags because you just want to be with that person. So I made the comment like that, and I was like, that's why you got to keep your standards high and you can't ignore red flags. And this guy commented he at me to say, oh, well, you'll be changing men every 3 working days. And I'm like, first of all, what is that? What are you trying to say? So don't have high standards to keep a man? Like, I just found it weird, like the combative nature of that response. But at the same time, it's social media. It's social media. I guess
good behavior on social media.
No, I don't expect it.
Full of gibberish.
But I just mean that comment in itself is interesting because it's similar to what we're saying about traditional roles, like expecting women to accept the bare minimum in order to stay in a relationship. Like, well, if that's what you want, you're going to be changing men every 3 days. And it's like, and what's wrong with changing men every 3 days if this is the caliber of men? Do you know what I'm saying? If this guy is literally saying that he's purposely mistreating this girl so that she can break up with him and she's not taking the hint, what could actually combat that is keeping your standards high and making sure you're not.
So you get rid of people like that.
Yeah, early on. Yeah. That whole post was interesting to me because it was like a depiction of this view of, oh, modern women are so, like, men are not here for your standards kind of energy. And I think it's like, there's nothing wrong with women having standards because they should know what they want. And there's nothing wrong with men having standards because they should be clear on who they are and what they want. But I think in today's day and age, traditional men and traditional women don't actually exist in the way we like to think they do.
They don't.
And that's our whole point.
You have to be real with that.
Yeah.
And accept that and kind of move on from it because,
it's not the reality we live in these days.
It's not the reality at all. And but there's some people out there that would not agree with that. They will still want that. They'll still be like, no.
No, but the thing is, if you are really that, then you're really that. I'm not saying they're extinct, but we are more hybrid than we like to think, all of us.
Yes.
The sheer fact that you need 2 incomes in a household to live a really fulfilled life in 2023 is enough to say there's hardly any truly traditional people left.
You see that some people that are probably trying out that traditional relationship, as you said before, unless you're
really about that life.
You're really about that life. You've got your wealth, you've got that money, you're set up that well, then you have to come back on your lifestyle. And most people don't want to do that. So
the average person doesn't want to cut down.
It's like, Ralph, why wouldn't I just work so that we can have both income coming in? I think a lot more couples are doing that.
Yeah. And then sometimes even if you do as a man have the ability to financially take care of everything, sometimes the issue is that the woman doesn't want that.
I know.
She doesn't want to rely on you like that.
Yeah, that's another
Maybe, the autonomy to make certain financial decisions matters to her.
Yeah, that is true.
And I say I want to do some of this creative stuff, and so that means for a while we'll be back to a dynamic we've been in before. But at the same time, I'm not even being traditional in that sense, really, because I do want to do stuff.
Yeah.
So where I say, well, I'm actually a traditional wife, I won't be a traditional wife.
If you're trying to become an author or write books, you're not a traditional wife.
Yeah. anything you're trying to do in that creates
because the traditional wife, my understanding is just they're not trying to do anything to make money. Because once you're trying to generate money for the family, for the household, then you're not traditional anymore.
True that. Just because you're cooking and cleaning, it doesn't mean you're traditional in that true traditional sense.
You're supposed to relax, look after the kids, get the kids to school, look after the household, cook, and then just chill with your girls. You know what I'm saying? You know that, what's the housewife?
Stepford
wives. Yeah, that's what you're supposed to,
go around to each other, make cake.
Yeah, make cake, I can't, just do the simple stuff. Like, but if you're there writing a book, trading, and no, well, you're a hybrid, girl. You're a hybrid. You get me?
You're still modern.
But there's an element of wanting to achieve more that we have in our society. And this our generation compared to previous generation, we want more. People were they were happy to settle for what they had, and that was it.
And we've said
a home, the kids, and the happy family life. That's all they wanted. They were happy with that.
And a pension. Retirement plan, yeah.
But that's now, what people want. We want more than that. We want that good car. We want that.
Oh, don't throw shade on our car.
We want that expensive membership in the gym. We want this. We want that. We want to trade. So there's a lot more. There's more demand. We want more. A lot more want. And social media has created more wants out there. So it's hard to live a traditional lifestyle
when you want
more. It's like, if we're going to be financially free, we're going to do that in 50 years. Unless you come on board, mate. You get me? That we can both do it together and we can get there in half the time.
Yeah.
You see?
Get there in 5 years.
Get it in 5 years, 10 years, instead of getting there in 20 years.
At which point? Yeah, I know what you're saying. I hear that.
So it depends on what you both want as a couple.
But that needs to align.
It needs to align.
And I think we're not aligning. This is what this conversation is about. Traditional men, traditional women, do they really still exist? Maybe, yeah. But technically, we're also hybrid. And we're not aligning all of these things. We're not making sure they still align in order for us to actually live the way we want to live.
Yeah.
On the one hand, you want a traditional man that will take care of you financially and do this and do that. On the other hand, you don't want him to have any say on what you do or how you spend your days or what you cook or how the house is kept. It's like, it's not the same man. Because that man will probably want to have a say. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then at the same time, it's like, are you thinking about retirement? Because with this traditional lifestyle you have with this man, accommodate you in retirement. What's the plan? Is he just got enough money to look after you for now? Or is he actually setting aside money for the future? What are you guys doing for the future? Is it investments? Yeah. What happens in retirement? Yeah.
That's why is
it aligning? Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
It's hard. And I think that for things to align properly, both parties have to be on board. They have to be clued on what's happening, because it could end up in a situation whereby the man is just looking after you, but he's also looking after another woman. And I'm not. Or you get to a point in your life, well, he's got a pension, you don't have a pension, or no, there's no money put aside. No, I'm being honest.
For you
have to look at all the gray. You have to look at the gray areas of that. So I feel like, yes, I want a traditional relationship. I want a traditional marriage, like a full-time traditional marriage. But I also think that you being proactive, you doing your music, doing the books.
But if you then take your own advice, you don't want a traditional marriage.
Probably not.
You can't really call it
a hybrid. Yeah, I'll say a hybrid.
And that's the whole point of this episode.
I am traditional deep down. Yeah, I've got my traditional shirt on. Yeah, it says traditional on the back. But the lifestyle that I want from my family, that we both want, right? It's a hybrid one, because I want us to get there in a short space of time. You understand what I'm saying?
So you are the person you're talking about that was for.
I do want more. I'm not gonna lie. I do want more. I don't want to be working in the 50s.
Frank, do you know how young a 50-year-old man is?
I do know how young a 50-year-old man is. When I said I don't want to be working, I said I want to be like generating, not even working, I want to be generating regular passive income like that.
Okay, so you don't want to do a 9 to 5.
Yeah. Well, put it this way. Yeah, I want to get out.
You want to be in your 50s, just doing that, doing no 9 to 5.
Yeah, just having control of how I generate my money.
How much of this is YouTube? How much is
none of it? None of it.
True, you don't watch a lot of YouTube.
None of it. So, but this is all from the players that we've been talking about.
Okay, so let's wrap this up because this is actually longer than last week's episode.
But this has been good though. This has been good.
I feel like it's been all over the place because we've just had a general conversation. I don't think we've been as structured about it. We've just kind of gone where it's taken us. And I think it's because we've had so many conversations about this role in different ways, in different episodes, from different avenues.
But no, this conversation needed to be had, and I think traditional and modern, we need to get clarity on that. If you just understand what it is, and then factor in your lifestyle, factor in the lifestyle of the person you're with, that you still
factor in your
plans, and then
the future.
Tradition is fading away. The TRAND is already disappearing.
You always say weird things like
no, because when you're factoring those things in, the word tradition starts disappearing slowly. Then you find that you're actually in a modern relationship.
Yeah, and I think this is what pushback.
But there's nothing wrong with that, though.
No,
I do feel like some people, when a man is not traditional, they feel a bit offended, like they deserve more. Like, do you feel like that as a woman?
What do you mean when a man's not traditional?
When they say, "Oh, your men are not traditional," it's like if the man is not it doesn't pay for everything. Let's say he can't afford to pay for everything, like everything.
Yeah, but see, this is my thing, and this is an interesting discussion because hasn't there recently been this thing where this woman was saying about if you want to get married, you need to get married young. I think Tyler Perry recently came out saying even if a man can only pay the light bill, if he treats you right, then it's the love that matters, kind of thing.
He said that?
Yeah, Tyler Perry came out.
He's delusional. He's delusional. He's not with reality. He's not on this planet.
Even if all he can afford to pay is the light bill.
No, that's bullshit.
That's bullshit. But yeah, so that's why you asking me that is interesting because there's been a lot of pushback on Tyler Perry saying that. A lot of women are like, "What are you talking about?" Like, a man that can only afford the light bill is not at a stage where you can take this guy seriously, kind of thing. And so there's been a bit of debate about that. And I have to say, my take on, I'm not going to go too deep into what Tyler said, but in my opinion, I do not get offended by a man that cannot afford to pay for absolutely everything. And I think that is because the life we live, I can't expect you to pay for absolutely everything and then us still have money to save. Yeah. That's the reality of it. We will be living paycheck to paycheck if you had to pay for absolutely everything. We won't have a retirement plan unless we consider our home a retirement plan, which I don't think is a good enough retirement plan, the way house prices are these days. So I feel like I've always expected there to be an element of building together.
Yeah.
And I've never had an issue with that. And part of it is probably because we met young.
Yeah.
So we've always built our life together. And I think that's fine for that kind of circumstance. But I would say what matters more to me is what do you view your responsibilities to the family?
Yeah, I agree.
If you're someone that sees it as a completely shared responsibility, you don't feel any heaviness more than me to take care of me and the kids.
Yeah.
I don't think I like that because I feel like I want to know if push came to shove, I'm married to the kind of man that will feel the responsibility to look after us. Yeah. And maybe that's just the aspect of me that's traditional. I want my husband to be someone that can protect me. And that's what I feel like I have. Yeah. So whether or not you're paying for absolutely everything is neither here nor there to me. It's about the kind of man that you are.
It is. And sometimes I also think sometimes it's a mental thing, right? Because two people that work, that both earn salaries and stuff, if the man pays all the essentials and the woman just, the money she works for, she put
food,
does the food, does the she puts money where it's part of the saving, but the man literally pays for all the essentials, the mortgage, the light bill, the water, the whatever. He pays all of it. A lot of women will feel more looked after, and it gives her money as like a upkeep money. A lot of women will feel it because that feels like
how our relationship is
a decent hybrid because you're still looked after. You guys are saving money.
Yeah.
He's looking after the essential side of things.
Yeah. He gives you money to look after yourself, so he looks after you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I'm saying for me it's difficult, because our relationship being like that means that, I struggle to say, no, he has to actually do absolutely everything and I'm 100% taken care of and there's nothing that I financially... That's not what moves me.
Yeah.
It's more about the fact that if I had to step up and I have to look after our household temporarily, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But if that's the reality of our everyday life and you don't see anything wrong with that, then I do have a problem with that. Yeah. And I think that's where the line can be drawn between... He doesn't have to have millions. He just needs to love you, right? That's kind of where that message is trying to get to. But it's not the right message when it's said that way, because essentially it does matter that he has money. It does matter that he can provide and he looks after you and he's financially trying to actually...
Because it says a lot about him.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. It's a man that loves you, right, will want to look
after you. Yeah, will want to provide.
And if he's there seeing it as some completely joint venture, I don't know, not for me. I feel like I want you to feel more financially responsible for us, the same way I feel more domestically responsible.
Yes.
Even though our domestics are shared, even though our finances are shared to some degree.
Yeah.
But there's still that split in a way.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And so my opinion of what Tyler Perry said is absolute bollocks. Like, there's no way it can just be about, you just pay the light bill, I'll pay for everything else, but he's a good man. He's a good man, Savannah. No, I don't think that's good enough, because if that man, he's going to be miserable. I think he's going to be miserable that he literally could only pay the light bill.
Well, if he's a proper man.
And then if he's not miserable, I'm trying to find out why he's not miserable about that, because
he's comfortable.
He should want to look after his family. So it's more nuanced than people are making it out. It's more nuanced than Tyler made it out. And I think, there is something to it, and it speaks more to the mentality of the man.
Yes.
Now, I must say, if you are older as a woman and then you're meeting a man who's older, then I do think he should be able to look after the household. And the reason I say that is because you are probably now going to go and have kids.
Yeah.
So you can't... It's not like when me and you met and it's like we're building together and
It's slightly different.
You're meeting, you should be more established by this point. Why are you 30-something not established?
If people in their 30s are meeting, then you would expect some form of establishment already. Yeah. Like if he's like in his 40s and you're like in your 30s and you want to start
building together,
then where are you building to?
There needs to be some establishment. That's what, if I was single and I was 30, 32, 33, I would be thinking about, what are you coming into this with? Because we need to both come into it with something and put together, because we should have already had years of building stuff up. If we get to a certain point and we're meeting and we're at a certain point in our life and you have nothing to come into this with, we've spent a lot of our years not together. So we need to come into it with something.
Yeah, you should have something already.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
I'm not trying to come into it in my 30s with someone who's just about to set himself up. You're not ready for a relationship, in my opinion.
You need to find someone that's on your level.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying, so in that case, it would be a bit more important to me that you can't pay for our family. That would matter a bit more to me at that age. To be honest, that guy probably wouldn't be the caliber of guy I would go for, because to me, there's a certain mentality that you had to have had for you to get to that age and not have achieved what you wanted to achieve, or not even be...
All comes back to standards.
Yeah. I know that sounds horrible, and maybe, one day I'll elaborate on it, but what I'm saying is, at a certain age, I would expect a certain man.
Yeah.
When I met you at a certain age, I knew what it was. Yeah. I'm not going to expect you to have what a Jeff Bezos will have, or even what my dad had when I met you at 21. Like, come on, And I think that's the difference. Like, with younger girls these days, it's like, okay, you want certain things, that's probably not the age bracket that you should be going for. It's probably not going to be your age mates. You need someone a bit older. And if that's the case, if that's what you want, just accept that you're probably not going to find it in your age mates, and stop giving them a hard time, because they probably need the women that are a bit more flexible in their way of thinking. They're not so traditional minded and they're happy to build together.
What are we saying then? What's the summary?
What are we saying?
What are we saying? We're saying that, look, understand what you're talking about before you talk about it. No,
Come on, that's rude.
it's rude. Is that rude?
I understand what you're talking about before you talk about it.
Understand what you're talking about before you talk about it. Get clarity on what it is that you mean in terms of, if we're talking about traditional, we're talking about like, modern, and then self-analyze. Try to ascertain, are you a traditional person or not? I'm tired.
Yeah, but that's what you're saying. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, just
try and really get to the root of what tradition means.
And why do you want that traditional woman or that?
Yeah, what do you really want?
What do you want from it?
Because at the end of the day, our response is traditional men, traditional women. In today's day and age, they don't really exist. Not fully, not in the way that tradition means.
Yeah.
And in that sense, we're all just a hybrid. We're all just a mixture of tradition and modern. And you need to know in what areas you're what.
Society has shaped us to be like that.
Yeah.
No one has been able to escape that.
Yeah.
No one's been able to escape that. So it's almost like if you went back, took a woman from, the 50s and you plunked her into our society right now, she would struggle. She would struggle because of what's around her. So it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Talk about women, doing their own thing. That's not how it was in the 50s.
Yeah.
Though, is it?
She might love it.
She probably would love it. She probably feel, like,
but at the same time, she might feel a bit
out of place,
out in the cold, a bit unprotected, a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Be looking for the closest traditional man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we said this in previous episodes a bit, but we touched on it. But I think today, that's what our messaging really is. We are all a mixture of modern and tradition in certain elements. There's no point having conversations on social media about women are so untraditional. And then on the flip side, there's no point having conversations about men no longer being traditional when really as women, you don't really want traditional men like that anyway in the life that we live today.
Yeah.
We need to recognize that we're hybrids. We need to plan accordingly. So we need to start thinking about in what areas are we traditional, in what areas are we more modern, and then we need to make sure that aligns with what our partner what our partner wants for their future, and how you then live your life as a result.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to have that clarity.
Yeah.
Communication.
Oh, not again.
Communicate.
I'm going to ban us from saying that word. Communicate. That's it.
But it is though, because if I had communicated with you, you would have known my plan from, years
and
ago.
I probably could have moved accordingly, because to be fair, I could have said, all right, we can switch to that dynamic in 2023.
Exactly. And then
we're going to work towards
then I would know what I need to do then.
Yeah, don't be like us.
Don't be like us. Plan a bit better.
Plan a bit better. But to be fair, I don't think I wouldn't change the way our relationship has progressed.
I would.
I feel like we have played the roles we needed to play at the right time, and I feel like we still got lots of plans. We always had like a working together type of dynamic, probably because we met young and we've been together a long time.
Yeah, I agree. And the building together has worked really well, and I think it's just kind of carried on, and we've achieved so much.
Yeah,
it's kind of like
that's what we
that's
what we used to.
That's what we're used to.
But we do, roles and gender and traditional roles and money and stuff is very much what works for us in our relationship. Because like I said before, I would say the setup that we normally do, Frank is literally the one that pays for all the essentials and stuff. And I'm more than happy just doing the food and stuff like that. So, and the households, So I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we are more traditional minded as well. But then the way we view our money is very modern. We make plans together. We save together. So it's not that separate, even though it's separated in order for the traditional aspect of for you paying for all the essentials. So it's really what works for you, which is very much hybrid.
You have to try certain setup. I think over the years, as you grow together, you come to the one that works for both of you. So trial and error kind of thing, So
to sum up,
do you? I'm joking.
Do you really? After all that,
No, to sum up, well, I think we summed it up already.
We're a mixture. People are hybrids, and like I said, it's the main takeaways from this conversation is have these conversations early. Pertaining to the future. Once you start thinking about getting married and things like that, really start talking about what's going to happen when we get to pension age. Like, how are we going to move in terms of these traditional expectations of each other? How are you going to save? How are you going to build? How many times are you going to move? That stuff is important.
Affect your finances. It's true.
Yeah, that stuff matters. And, you know, in the beginning as well, if you're dating, be clear on what you think traditional is, and be clear on who you really are in that space and in what areas you're traditional and what areas you're modern. And have the conversations, like Frank said. Communicate.
That's it, guys.
That's it.
So this has been an interesting one.
Yeah, we've let it flow a lot more.
Yeah.
So that's it, guys. You've heard our views on traditional men and traditional women, modern men, modern women, and whether or not traditional men and women actually still exist. We really hope you tune into the next episode, where we'll be talking about living together before marriage.
That's going to be a good one.
Why do you always say that?
That's another juicy one.
No, please. I can't bother. So tune into that one.
Yeah.
Don't forget to email us any of your questions, comments, or dilemmas at itt.thepodcast@gmail.com, or send us a DM on Instagram at ITT Podcast, all one word. Thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll speak to you on the next one.
Bye.